Okay, cold sores, am I right? They're like the worst. Seriously, you think you're in the clear and then bam, out of nowhere, it's like they know when you have a big presentation or a first date, and everyone's got an opinion on them.
Mm.
But actually getting to the bottom of what's true and what's not, it can feel impossible.
Yeah, it's tough to sift through all the noise out there, especially when you're dealing with something that can be, well, kind of embarrassing.
Totally. So that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're talking all things cold sores, and we've got this excerpt you sent over. It seems to cover the basics pretty well.
Yeah, should be a good starting point.
And just to be clear, we're not shying away from the nitty-gritty here.
Absolutely. We're talking triggers, treatments, all of it. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up for a sec. What are we actually dealing with when we talk about a cold sore?
Well, they're not just a random annoyance, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about a virus here. The herpes simplex virus, or HSV.
Right. And get this, it's way more common than you might think. We're talking 1/3 of the world's population has had at least one cold sore.
Wow, 1/3. That's a lot of people.
It is. And it's probably why there's so much misinformation floating around.
That makes sense. So, okay, we've got this really common virus. But what's the deal with the different types of HSV? I know people always talk about HSV-1 and HSV-2.
Yeah, that's important to distinguish. So HSV-1, that's usually what causes those classic cold sores around the mouth.
Okay,
Oral herpes. HSV-2, that's typically associated with genital herpes.
right.
Now here's where it can get a little tricky. Both types can actually appear in either location.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time, but it can definitely cause some confusion.
Okay, so how does this all play out? Like, if I've got this virus, what makes it go from just hanging out in my system to, actually showing up on my face?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. Well, imagine this. You're going about your day, feeling fine, and then you feel it, a little tingle on your lip,
Oh, I know that feeling.
right?
Yeah, it's like a warning sign.
It is, and that tingle, it's usually the first sign that a cold sore is about to, well, rear its ugly head.
And then it just gets worse from there, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, it often does. The tingle turns into a full-blown blister.
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah, filled with fluid, not a good look. And as if that weren't bad enough, that blister eventually ruptures.
Ugh, I hate that part. It's like the most painful stage.
Oh,
Okay, so not exactly the kind of visual we want to dwell on, but it is important information, especially because I think a lot of people get cold sores mixed up with other kinds of mouth sores. What about those like painful sores that you get inside your mouth?
oh, you mean canker sores?
Yeah, are those the same thing?
Nope, not even close. Canker sores are totally different. They're actually ulcers.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, they pop up inside your mouth, and while they can be just as annoying and painful as cold sores, the good news is they're not contagious.
Oh, good to know.
Huh.
So back to the cold sore life cycle. After the blister ruptures, what happens? Does it just magically disappear?
It wishes. It does eventually go away, but not without a little more drama first.
Of course not.
So the ruptured blister, it starts to dry out, forms a scab, and then finally that scab falls off, leaves behind fresh skin.
The whole process just sounds so glamorous, doesn't it?
Right.
No wonder people get self-conscious. But here's what I don't get. If this HSV-1 is so common, why do some people seem to get cold sores constantly? Like
Hmm.
every other week they've got one.
Oh.
And other people, it's like they're living in a magical blister-free world.
Triggers, my friend. They're like little landmines in your life. You step on one, boom, cold sore city.
So what are we talking about here? Like stress, lack of sleep?
Bingo. Stress is a huge one. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be some big life-altering event. It can just be everyday stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Work deadlines, traffic, you name it.
Wow.
If
Okay.
it makes you feel stressed, it can trigger an outbreak.
So basically, I should just live in a Zen garden from now on.
Well, it couldn't hurt, right?
Right. What about other triggers?
Let's see, what else does the excerpt mention? Oh, right, your immune system. That's another biggie.
Okay, how so?
So when your immune system is down, whether it's from lack of sleep, not eating right, or even just having a cold.
It's like an open invitation for the virus to party.
Exactly.
So all those things your doctor tells you to do for your overall health,
Yeah.
they also help keep cold sores away.
Exactly.
Good to know. So if everyone's got this virus and
Oh.
it's just kind of lurking around, is there any way to, like, get rid of it completely?
I wish I had better news, but unfortunately, no. Once you have HSV, it's there to stay.
Ugh, seriously.
I know, not what you wanted to hear,
Not at all.
but, and this is a big but,
Okay, I'm listening.
just because you have the virus doesn't mean you're doomed to a life of constant cold sores.
Really? Tell me more.
There are absolutely things you can do to manage it,
Yeah.
ways to minimize those outbreaks, make them less severe, all that good stuff.
Okay, now that's what I wanted to hear. So spill it. What's the secret?
Well, first and foremost, talk to your doctor.
Okay.
They can help figure out what's best for you, especially if you're having really frequent or painful outbreaks.
Makes sense.
They might suggest antiviral medication.
Antiviral, like what you take for the flu.
Exactly. Same idea, just targets the herpes virus instead.
Gotcha.
These medications, they work by stopping the virus from replicating, so that can shorten the duration of your outbreaks, make the symptoms less severe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And there are even some over-the-counter options you can try, like a Breva.
Oh, right, Abreva. I've seen the commercials.
It's a topical cream, can be helpful for some people.
Okay, so we've got medication, but what about home remedies? Like my grandma used to swear by putting ice on a cold sore. Any truth to that?
You know, ice can help temporarily with the pain and swelling, but honestly, the best thing you can do is keep the area clean and moist.
Clean and moist. I feel like that's the answer to everything in skincare.
Well, there's a reason for it. Keeping it clean helps prevent infection, and keeping it moist can help prevent cracking, bleeding, scarring, all that fun stuff that can actually make it take longer to heal.
Makes sense.
There are also some natural remedies that some people find helpful,
Oh, really?
like lysine.
Icing.
Yeah, it's an amino acid that's been shown to have some antiviral properties.
Huh, interesting. I'll have to look into that. So we've talked about treatment, but what about prevention? Is there
Yeah.
anything we could do to avoid those triggers in the first place?
Well, you've already hit on a few key things.
Oh, yeah.
Managing stress, getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, all that good stuff.
Right.
And then, of course, good hygiene.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Can't emphasize that enough.
So like washing your hands, not touching your face.
Exactly. And for the love of all that is holy, do not, I repeat, do not share anything that comes into contact with your mouth.
Okay, that's good advice.
No sharing drinks, utensils, lip balms.
Especially important if you're like in a relationship and your partner gets cold sores.
Absolutely. Open communication is key in any relationship, but especially when it comes to something like this.
True. So on that note of being realistic, I do want to ask about something that's always kind of freaked me out. Are there ever any like serious complications from cold sores? Or am I just being paranoid?
It's good to be curious, and you're right to wonder about that, because even though, for the most part, cold sores are pretty harmless, there are a few situations where they can lead to complications.
Okay, so when should we be concerned? Like, when does a cold sore become more than just a cold sore?
Well, sometimes HSV-1 can actually spread to other parts of the body, especially if you have any open sores on your hands or face and you're touching those areas.
Makes sense.
For example, it can sometimes lead to eye infections.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, then those can be pretty serious if you don't get them treated right away.
So it's like, don't rub your eyes if you've been chopping jalapenos,
Yeah.
but with a virus instead of peppers.
Exactly. And then in really rare cases, HSV-1 can even spread to the brain.
The brain.
Yeah, it can cause something called encephalitis.
Encephalitis, that sounds bad.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst case scenario, and it usually only happens in people with weakened immune systems.
Okay, that's good to know.
But yeah, I mean, for the vast majority of people, cold sores are just an annoyance, they're not a major health threat. But that being said, if you ever experience anything unusual along with a cold sore, like a high fever, a really bad headache, any confusion, or even seizures, definitely call your doctor right away. Don't mess around with that.
Got it. Good to have that permission slip to freak out, just in case. But, okay, for those of us who just get the, regular garden variety cold sore every now and then, what's the takeaway here?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is just don't stress about it too much.
Easier said than done.
I know. But it's true. Having HSV-1 is so incredibly common, and it's totally manageable. It doesn't have to be this big, scary thing that takes over your life.
That's good to hear. So you're saying I don't have to hide in my apartment every time I feel a tingle on my lip?
Exactly. You can still live your life. You can still go on dates. You can still give your grandma a kiss on the cheek. Just maybe not if you have an active cold sore,
Right, of course. Common sense stuff. Well, this has been super informative. I feel like I learned a lot. We've covered what cold sores are, how they happen, how to deal with them, all the important stuff. But I do have one last question that I think a lot of people might be wondering.
Okay, shoot.
So we know that HSV-1 is super common. But how is it that some people just never seem to get cold sores? Like, they've got the virus, but they're totally immune to outbreaks. What's their secret?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. And unfortunately, it's one that scientists don't have a definitive answer to yet.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like some people's immune systems are just better at keeping the virus under control. And there might be some genetic factors involved too. We just don't know for sure yet.
Wow, so it's still a mystery.
Kind of, yeah. But it's a mystery that researchers are actively trying to solve. So who knows, maybe someday we'll have a better answer for you.
Fingers crossed. Well, in the meantime, I feel a lot more prepared to handle whatever cold sores throw my way. Thanks for all the great info.
Anytime. That's what we're here for.
And to everyone listening, remember, you're not alone if you deal with cold sores. They're super common, and they don't have to rule your life. Just remember everything we talked about today, and don't hesitate to reach out to your doctor if you have any questions or concerns. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay healthy.